you to the T5 peeps, Bob the Dragon, Data Magnet, Cat Crab Lobster, Dark Machine, Estrella the Dreamer, Messick, Fudic Yol, and Caspar Arnholtz. Thank you very much. Story number 1. Roaming Charges, written by Tal McCall. Etim Rock was not a particularly disciplined member of his species. He prided himself in being a relaxed captain that treated his crew fairly and only focused on the things that mattered. You could be late for your ships, and he could care less about the state of your uniform, or even if you were in uniform after the journey was underway. For this attitude, he was rewarded with the least important duties in the Navy. His ship was an aging transport, retrofitted for long flights to the outer rim where it delivered fuel and supplies for long-range surveillance installations on the Okanoyan Union. What Etim could not tolerate was sabotage of his vessel's equipment. His chief engineer had noticed an unusual power drain from the communications grid, and after attempting to diagnose the problem, had noticed that the ship's faster-than-light network connection had been running at almost 100% capacity since they had left port. Etim's crew was too small to have proper communications officer, so after attempting to access the network traffic logs and being totally baffled by the contents, Etim's chief engineer had the brilliant idea to manually trace the power draw of the data cables. After having to remove a dozen access panels to trace each node, they eventually arrived at the quarters of the human. Etim may not have been a particularly disciplined member of his species, but crewman Simon Lizzet was the least disciplined member of the least disciplined species ever burst amongst the stars. When Etim had received his application to join his crew as a temporary general laborer, he had to access his translator several times to make sense of what he was reading. Simon was on a gap year, a period of non-productive activity between studies. He had not completed his species' advanced specialized training. Despite the name implying a single year of idle behavior, Simon had been doing this for at least 3. All as part of his backpacking across the Union, for some great journey to find himself and get off the grid. Still, finding any crew willing to go on a journey to the edge of Union was difficult, and humans were known for accomplishing their work, although they often did it with a minimal amount of effort. So Etim had been forced to hire this dirty-looking human and watch him drag his absurdly dirty backpack on board. Thinking back of the experience, Etim couldn't believe him capable of sabotage. He certainly couldn't understand his motives, but he was about to get to the bottom of this. Using his captain's authorization, he commanded the door to open. It instead made a curious chime, and after a brief delay, he heard Simon's curious speech. "You can't just knock, dude, but come on in, I guess." Etim had been allowing himself to be addressed as dude for far too long. His leniency with the crew had really gotten out of control. "Crewman Simon, you will address me as Captain Rock. You will also immediately explain your sabotage of the ship's network." Simon didn't take his eyes off the small portable computing device on his table. "Mo, dude, drill, Rock, chill. What's that about sabotage? I just changed the door authorization just in case, I'm busy in here. Been talking to a girl in maintenance and I think maybe..." Etim closed the screen on Simon's device. "The ship's network has been running at 100% capacity for weeks, you half, but did you think we wouldn't find out?" The slow realization was spreading on the human's face. "You mean the net?" I'm just using torrents, dude. Dude, Rock, sir, dude." "What's a torrent?"
"Just stuff, dude, from home. Movies and games and some software and open source stuff."
Madness, Etim thought to himself. Communications were for military use only at these distances. The crew was limited to less than a terabyte per cycle for personal communications. Etim hadn't even seen the last championship of the Trillion series since departure. "Start making sense, crewman. The only network out here is military-grade encrypted. Even the ship's network has a firewall built to endure a rogue AI attack. Who are you working with?" Captain Rock swore he saw a smirk on the human's face.
"Dude, Captain, I just set up a new connection using the surveillance network after my first shift. There is like a yottabytes of bandwidth not being used. After several hours of sitting with the crewmen, Rock had decided this human might be an actual genius. With some direction, Simon had downloaded the entire Trillion series, and not just the championships, but all the sub-team games as well, in ultra resolution. Rock had spent the better part of his career flying these dead zones and nothing to do, and his human had just gotten him the latest data packets without any effort at all. Simon, this is going to be one of those things that do not matter, but can you set this up in my quarters? Sure, dude, but we need to get you a VPN and a client browser. It's no problem, dude. I did this for my grandpa, too. Captain Rock! Dude, you really need to chill. End of story. Story number 2. Locked, written by Chain Blue. It's locked, thought Researcher 67 quizzically. Researcher 99 caught a stray thought and looked up from her display. What's locked? Inquired Researcher 97, ignoring her junior researcher's lack of mental discipline. It wasn't all that odd for the young to exclaim their thoughts when making a new discovery. It was her first field expedition as a newly graduated xenobiologist, after all. She was bound to be a bit overly enthusiastic. Researcher 67 folded her vestigial wings slightly closer to her body as a sign of mild embarrassment. Researcher 97 repeated the question, this time making direct eye contact. Researcher 99, what is locked? Researcher 99 pointed down at the data display from the quantum resonance scanner in which the subject was currently floating. She raised her head from the display on the floor and straightened so that her torso was near a perfect 45-degree angle with the floor, and formally thought, Researcher 97, the results scan of the specimen 68756D616E0A shows conclusively that the specimen's brain has submolecular modifications that have locked its ability to send and receive thoughts. Otherwise, it is fully sentient. Researcher 97's mind raced as so many strands of their current perplexity began to vibrate in resonance. She allowed her assistants to hear her processing this new information. That explains our efforts to communicate with him failed, and why we were unable to calm him. No wonder the poor thing became so agitated and had begun to reek of stress pheromones when we brought him on board. We are probably lucky that he didn't become violent in self-defense before we put him to rest and recovery state. Researcher 99 vibrated her mandibles in understanding. We will have to report this to the ethics jury, won't we? We have inadvertently collected a sentient being, terrified it, and quite likely are holding it against its will, she thought mournfully. Yes, but we may have a solid defense if we can communicate with him and gain his cooperation, Researcher 97 explained. Both contact misunderstandings are more common than the ministry would have most of the population believe, she continued. There are protocols that can be followed. Our careers aren't over just yet, she concluded. It took a full 2 hours of dedicated processing time by all 3 ships' AIs working together to fully decode the subatomic lock. The code itself appeared to be vast amounts of nonsense and junk, but ultimately they found a simple but elegant design seal. 2 of the ship's AIs returned their normal duties, while the science AI reported the findings to the researchers by the floor display. Researcher 97 directed the science AI to transmit the wave particles that would open the specimen's mind. The display that should be showing her the progress of the process froze, pixelated, and then formed into a large red octagon with white letters within. Researcher 99 thought a single word aloud, "Stop!" and directed a confused look at Researcher 97, did not return a gaze. All 3 of her eyes were transfixed on the unexpected image. The text changed. Are you sure that you want to do this? It read. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.